Alright everybody, it's Jay Theo again with another DR650 tutorial. Today we're going to adjust the valves on it. As you can see, I've already taken the seat off, taken the tank off. I cover that in other videos, taking the side panels off so you can get the seat off. Taking the small cap off of the magneto cover, and then also the small cap off of the little viewing window there. I've also removed one of these spark plugs, these spark plug caps, and the valve covers, as you can see there in the black there. And there's the intake. See if I can focus that. I've also removed the shroud that goes across the front of the tank to make getting to those valves easier. There's just two small bolts there. They're very, very easy to take out and move the shroud out of the way. So without further ado, let's jump into this. Now the first thing you want to notice is that when you put a socket on this bolt down here and you turn it counterclockwise, not clockwise, counterclockwise. If you turn it clockwise, it makes a grinding sound like there's sand in it or something. Ask me how I know. Turn it counterclockwise. I don't know if that does damage to your engine or not, but turn it counterclockwise. That's the way to do it. Counterclockwise, this way. Turn it counterclockwise, you'll see a little T and a little marking show up in this window here. But you have to get it at top dead center on the compression stroke. So the best way to do that is to watch your valves as you turn the crank counterclockwise. So I'm going to do that. Now, one way to do it is to use a socket, right? If you put the socket in there and turn that counterclockwise, you'll hear the wisp of air come out of there. However, with a ratchet, if you get too far, and basically what you're looking for here, I'll explain it in a minute, but with a ratchet, if you get too far, it will, it's getting difficult to push now, and then it kind of goes past where you need it to go, and you can't go backwards with it. So that's a good thing, but you want to have more control over it than that. So what I do is I take the ratchet off, use the same socket, and I stick some vice grips on it. That way I have complete control over it. It's not going to flip past where it's supposed to go, you know, like a ratchet will, because ratchet's ratchet. Anyway, now what you're wanting to look for here is on the intake stroke, the intake valve over here, and you can tell it's the intake stroke, or the intake valves, because they're next to the carburetor. So air comes in the intake and it goes out the exhaust, right? So you'll see your inside valves move. I'm going to put this on a tripod so I can have some extra hands. Hang on. Now what you're looking for is to see those valves drop like they're doing right now. Let me focus it just a little bit better there. See these valves right here? They drop just ever so slightly, and then they come back up. Another nice thing about doing it with the vice grips is that you can actually position the vice grips to point in the direction of the T on the top dead center. So I'll show you how I do that. So there's the hole there. Turn this around. There you go. Now you can see it pretty good. So as I turn this, you can see the little thing in there. Should be a T right there. So you want that T to be right in the middle. So now what I'm going to do is position my vice grips to point in the same direction of that as that T. as long as they stay on there. And they will be right there, pointing at that T. So, now what I want to look for is the exhaust valves opening first, and then right after they open, I want to look for the T. I'm going to pull you back a little bit. Now as I turn this, like I said before, you'll notice these valves open and close. See if I can hang this here somewhere. Hold it in my mouth. So there they open. They dip down. You can see them open there. And they come up. That's right here. Now before the exhaust valve opens, now you're in a compression stroke because it's let the air in with the gas mixture. It's now compressing it, and so that it will get compressed air for the explosion. So now I just turn my vice grips back to where top dead center is, and I will be at top dead center with the T in the middle of the hole. So I'll do that and then I'll show you the valves. Okay, so you can see now that I'm right on that T in the opening, and that's right where you should be. It's not the line, it's on the T. So make sure and get that. Now once you're on that line, one thing you should notice is that your valves will have a little bit of play in them. For example, if you reach in, you should be able to click them up and down a little bit. There you go. Kind of have to grab the top of it. It should wiggle a little bit, both on the intake and the exhaust. Just grab the top of that nut, and it should come up and just tap right on the top of the valves. Now what you want to do to adjust the valves is between where it's tapping, you want to be able to slip the little shim under there and make sure that it's within spec. So to do that, it's easiest to get a angled shim. If you don't have an angled shim, you can make your own angled shim out of a flat shim. I actually have these flat shims here. Where'd they go? These flat shims here, and I simply pop them out and then bend them at a good location, making sure not to bend the end piece, because if you bend the actual end piece, it varies the measurement. So I'll show you that. So what you want to do here is put the shim right down between there, and I've actually got a bit of play in there because I can move it freely in there. So what I'm going to do, you loosen this thing here, the nut. It's kind of a lock nut, and then there's a square knob on the top. That square knob is actually the height. This is just a lock nut. So you have to loosen the lock nut, tighten that a little bit, tighten the lock nut back up, and then recheck the clearance. And the thing you got to do, check it, tighten it, check it again. You want both of these to be as close to each other as possible, using the same feeler gauge. And then you do the front ones using the other feeler gauge. The intake, I believe, is 0.004. The exhaust is 0.008. So you check those, and then you want to crank the engine over, not using the start, but just crank it over by hand so you're back at top dead center, and then recheck everything just to make sure that it's still within spec. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so this is the intake valves right here. I'm gonna try and keep my flashlight out of the way, but what you want to do is you want to take your little feeler gauge and right down here between where the valve and the screw meet, you want to just slip your feeler gauge right in there. Now the best way that I've found how to do this is to actually take a square head screw. See if I can get this in focus. Take a square head screw like this, just a normal decking screw with a square head. Wrap some tape around it, and that'll help you make some of the you know, kind of easy adjustments. I usually put the feeler gauge underneath, you know, between the valve and the rocker arm. I'll tighten it kind of hand tight and then just back it off a little bit. And then what I did to tighten the lock nut on it, so I'd take these little vice grips that I got, the little needle nose vice grips. I'd clamp them on there. Sorry, this is out of focus. Clamp them on there like that, and then hold it steady in that position while I tighten it with either a box end wrench or an end wrench or something like that. And that makes it quite easy. You don't really need the tool that they sell for adjusting valves or anything like that. You just use a square head screw. So there you go. Now I have adjusted the intake and the exhaust valves on here. I rotated the engine around, double checked it again, and they both seemed, you know, fairly tight in there. I could, you know, get the feeler gauge in there and kind of slide it around, but it had some friction on it. That's about where you want to be. 0.004 on the back and 0.008 on the front. So that's where you want to be. So now you button it back up, put everything back together, turn it over, and you'll be good for another few thousand miles. This has been another tutorial by J. Theo. Hope you enjoyed it.
And now for an extra word of warning. This is actually the second time that I did my valves. The first time I saw that the spec was between 0.004 and 0.008 on the intake valves, and between 0.008 and 0.0012, I believe, on the exhaust valves. I adjusted them in the middle of the range the first time, and I noticed that my bike became increasingly harder to start because the exhaust valves were not opening you know, in time to let the exhaust out before the starter motor would try and kick it over. So what would actually happen is I would push the starter motor, it would do kind of a thunk, and then it would just stop. And the starter motor didn't have enough oomph to like turn over the motor. So I'd actually have to put it in gear, rock it a little bit, and get it past that compression stroke, you know, to get the starter motor a little extra room to spin up. So this is actually the second time I did it. I adjusted them to the lower threshold, being 0.004 and 0.008, and ever since then my bike has run perfectly. It starts right up, and they're where they need to be. So good luck, leave your comments below, and thanks for watching.